name is Dr. Okay. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Dry Bridges, and I'd like to welcome everyone to this town hall. I am the chair of NAPAC-USA Michigan chapter, and just a few information about NAPAC-USA. It's a 501c organization established in 2011 as a political action committee. Our mission is to engage, inform, and empower Nigerian Americans in the United States through policy impact, education, health and wellness, effective advocacy, and economic empowerment. The Michigan chapter is relatively new, and we've been working on various projects, including this one. We do have a summer institute that we're enrolling young 16 through 18 youth to empower them in political ambitions. So later on in our town hall, I will add a link in the chat for those who like to enroll their youth, or if you can also let others know about our Summer Institute. And also if you want to be informed of our various programs and events, and if you'd like to be a member. So welcome, I'll pass the baton to Honorable Akindele Akinyemi.
Thank you very much, Doctor, and welcome everyone to our special educational town hall meeting. I'm going to go around the table and just introduce everybody briefly, and then we'll jump right into our questions. I want to start with the young lady straight out of Oakland County. That's Southfield Lathrop Village. For those who don't know, that's my old friend. Going back to Genesis 1:1, she knows exactly what that means. That is the Honorable Tiffany Tilley. She is the secretary on the Michigan State Board of Education. I said State Board of Education. That means over 1 million people voted for her to get elected to the state board. Next in line is my good sister. This sister is fierce. She's straight out of Westland, but was born in Inkster. She sit on the Wayne Westland Community School Board. She is the one that's connecting the dots for me to get more entrenched in the school district, in the Wayne Westland School District. That is Melanie Hines. Please welcome her. Next we have our cyber education, our virtual online expert. It is true that she is a GABA board member, but she has done a lot of great work, not just for GABA, but for the Cyber Education Center. She floats between the state of Michigan and the state of Tennessee, and connecting the dots domestically and internationally with cyber education to empower students to ensure that they get that American diploma. That is Dr. Paula Whittaker Watkins. Please welcome her. Next we have the captain. I call him the captain, straight out of Flint, Michigan. This man is a master researcher. He is a master visionary. This guy knows all about cybersecurity. He knows all about information technology. He's well published. He moves around between the state of Michigan and the state of Tennessee, and he is also a GABA board member. Please welcome Terrance Campbell. And we do have one more that's going to be joining us, and that is Mrs. Winnie Nwankwo. She is the middle school principal at the Trade Service Learning Academy. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's jump right into our questions. I'm going to start this one off with Tiffany Tilley because this is a state issue. I'd just love to hear her perspective on this. You know, Senate Bill 460 was introduced by Republican Michigan State Senator Lana Theus last week. The bill prohibits Michigan public schools from instructing children on critical race theory, the 1619 Project, or other specified anti-American and racist theories, and the state, according to this bill, would hold 5% of its school aid if it did so. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts on that is.
My question would be, why are they so afraid of the 1619 Project or racist theories being taught in the schools? We know the truth is a lot of racism has been taught in the schools using curriculum. It's unfortunate that even today in 2021, I have had to bring issue to the table and to Dr. Rice's attention, our state superintendent, who has been awesome on these issues. Teachers are still using social studies and history lessons to teach students about the financial relevance of slavery, how it made the slave owners rich, and asking questions like, now do you understand why slave owners wanted slaves? The answer is no. I do not understand how they put profitability over humanity. Why aren't we teaching humanity? Why aren't we teaching financial literacy in a way that empowers people without destroying other human beings? The Democrats on the state board fought hard to make sure that social justice was included in the state's standards for social studies. SB 460 is a way for the right wing to fight against that. It causes a lot of harm and no good.
All right, thank you so much for that response. I want to slide another question to you, Tiffany, then we'll move on. Let's talk a little bit about this third grade thing. The State Board of Education 2 weeks ago adopted a resolution urging lawmakers to suspend the third grade retention rule this year. However, nothing's been done by lawmakers to suspend the law. Now, from your perspective, what are the next steps that grassroots organizations like NAPAC Michigan or other groups can become engaged with this effort to stop third grade retention? I think there was something that happened. You have to forgive me. I thought I read something this morning or late last night about this law was kind of pushed through to keep the retention in place. But can you just kind of talk about that real briefly?
My response is always going to be lobby, lobby, lobby. My emails get flooded with emails from right-wing parents when they don't agree with something. Sometimes it's 50 parents sending the same message over and over again. They'll come out to state board meetings and voice their opinions. It's not enough for us to sit back amongst each other and complain. Lawmakers have to fill it. Grassroots should organize, call, send emails, knock on doors, do it in unison, whether it's 50 voices, 500 voices, or 5,000 voices. There has to be an organized movement contacting legislators because they are the ones with the authority to change this law. Also, I wanted to give an example. Mother Helen Moore in Detroit has organized a citywide volunteer effort, joining churches, businesses, community members alike to host sites and organize free tutors for children to prepare them for the standardized test. That is a model that should be used in every community and regardless of testing. We have had an issue with our children receiving the education they deserve for a long time. We cannot just sit and wait for the government or the school system that is government funded. Some things we have to take into our own hands. When I was 17, I realized my 5-year-old stepbrother could not read. That was the last time he could not read. I quickly taught him how. His mother left for work, he couldn't read. She came back and he was overwhelmed, and she was overwhelmingly shocked to the fact that her son could not read. We are a part of a village. How many children have you taught to read? So those are two ways that we can fix this. We can lobby and we can teach.
Thank you so much. And just for the audience, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. Thank you. I'm moving on to Melanie Hines. Question for you. So given all the issues that arise at a school board level, K-12 school board level, how can the board stay focused on student achievement from your perspective?
Well, it's very important to stay focused because the lines, they always move up. I took a class with the Michigan Association of School Boards about assessments, and it was very interesting because we all know that they spend more time focusing on assessments than actual curriculum. So with Westland, we had to develop a new curriculum, and going back to that Senate bill 460, that's it really bothers me because I know I've been watching a lot of specials like on PBS where they were talking about the Daughters of the Revolution. After the Civil War, they wrote a majority of the history books that's been going out through schools all over the nation, in which they're telling a story that's not true when it comes to Civil War, and not to mention that they've been putting out all those Civil War statues out there. So our kids are not learning accurate history as well. And a lot of school districts like mine, it used to be primarily Caucasian, but now we're almost at 45%. And we have to make sure with climate and culture that the teachers actually match the students. Because as a school board member, we have to look at suspension rates. And a lot of times if the teachers, they're not They don't know about cultural, when it comes to different minority students, their backgrounds. They're more likely to suspend them more than white students, in which we go into the pipeline to prison. So, you know, achievement is very important. We have to make sure, as Ms. Tilley said, we have to make sure we have tutors in place. Recently, we just had an issue with our teachers that they were upset at certain school buildings in minority areas where they were taking the K-12 teachers that were certified, moving them to 4th grade. Now, we do have a pandemic going on, so the kids are already 2 years behind. So it all kind of goes together with the minorities, the digital divide, the 3rd grade reading bill, Senate Bill 460, they all kind of come together when you really start to think about it. Because technically, if you think the kids already have a 2-year lapse in education, now you're taking a teacher that's highly trained from kindergarten all the way to 4th, that's that 3rd grade reading in between, if you see what I'm saying. So you're already you're putting something in process to intentionally keep the African-American students behind educationally. So I, as a board member, I supported my union. I said, hey, what you guys are doing is wrong. You know, if we already have a pandemic, it takes like a 3-year lapse for the teachers to get up to date with curriculum. So with the 3rd grade reading bill in place, and you're doing these switching around in the minority area, that's a problem. So I'm an advocate to making sure that our kids get fair and equitable education. And like we said before, with the digital divide, we know that minority students were affected the most without having internet access during the pandemic. And a lot of our children are failing. So definitely we need to go to Lansing, make sure that we fight on behalf of our children, because mostly minority children, we are being neglected, and we are more likely to have the negative effects of those 3rd grade reading bills and more actions from Lansing in which are trying to deny our children education.
All right, thank you so much. I'm coming around to Dr. Watkins. My question to you, Dr. Watkins, is why is cyber virtual learning a necessity in 2021 as opposed to an option when it comes to a post-COVID-19 educational environment? Do you feel that this is the way of the future?
Well, greetings, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to share. Mr. President, Mr. Akindele, I really, as I answered that question, one of the things I have to recognize is that our children need human engagement, human interaction, human touch as far as education. So let's make certain that that is foremost integrated in whatever we do, whether it's virtual learning or cyber learning, whatever the term is, we still need that human engagement. I will say that I do believe that we have cyber education, virtual education on the horizon here and in the future. And the reason I would say that is because we have so many young people for various reasons, societal and life circumstances, who might need that engagement. Now, it still has to be with the human touch. It cannot be in isolation. It cannot be thrown to the parents, dependent on them to carry the ball all the way to the finish line with a student. And as far as the work that we've done, we've targeted and focused in on youth and young adults, for the most part, who did not graduate in a traditional brick and mortar setting, and who may have been missing 4 credits or 6 credits. And if we're passing their courses, but perhaps they were young parents and they had to stop going to school. Perhaps they started working full time to help take care of their families. And so they needed not only that opportunity to engage, but also to gain post-secondary readiness skills for a career, for dual enrollment in college or university, or for job training. So there are other opportunities and ways to engage with that, rather than saying it's all about just making everything virtual and turn it into a Zoom classroom. That is not something that I attest to as something we should put forth. But I do say, when we have 99,000 youth and young adults in Detroit and 120,000 youth and young adults in Wayne County without a high school diploma, do some very solid things, take that ball over the goal line. As Ms. Tilley said earlier, we have to become the ones who look at a solution.
Okay, fantastic. if this question is coming around for Terrance Campbell. What strategies can we construct to maximize cyber learning for K-12 students from your perspective? You work in that space in terms of cybersecurity and dealing with data. What's your take on that, sir?
So thank you very much for inviting me to participate today. One of the things that you did not say out of all this cool stuff that I got going on, that I am actually a certified cybersecurity teacher, so I'm still teaching, in the state of Tennessee. We're virtual. Shelby County Schools was one of the, forerunners for distance learning this school year. And so I think that, first of all, we need to take the attitude that it's everybody, all hands on deck, okay? Is the students, is the parents, is the teachers. Some of these folks that's listening gonna be mad at me, but these educational leaders, get the heck from behind your desk. Stop hiding behind your title. Do your job and help be on the front line, helping your teachers make sure they have what they need to have. Stop this knee-jerk planning, because now all this lackluster planning and this puffery and all of that, it really destroys the time with respect to the classroom that the teachers have. Doc and I always talk about there is such the disconnect that putting something online, distance education, virtual education does not equal virtual learning. Okay. We have to all get out of our comfort zone and make it happen. Everybody has been greatly affected by this, but no more so than the parents, than the teachers and the students, okay? That connection, that socialness. I love the way that Doc says, you gotta have that face-to-face, the hand-holding, all of that kind of stuff, Let's make it happen. And so truly trying to figure out what teachers need in the context of not just digital literacy, okay? There's media literacy that needs to go on, okay? When you're doing digitally mediated instruction, okay, hands-on, all right? Less lecture. You got them right there. Have them using those resources. But again, one of the other challenges that we have is that we have teachers in non-technical content areas that don't know how to functionally use Microsoft Office suite, okay? And while that's a challenge, for me, I see that's the role of PD for teachers, not just saying do this and do this or do that, actually having them in the classroom, developing lesson plans based on standards that they use. It's the business of education, right? It's not just it's the business of education. I think that the biggest thing though, is that school districts need to become very creative in the partnerships that they develop with businesses directly in their community. Find ways to get those IT people in the classroom, help them co-facilitate, allow them to co-facilitate, develop partnerships with them and your vendors to the tune of, you're not going to just give us this money. You're going to help us build our technical capacity in some way, shape, form, or fashion. We need to have partnerships with your IT department that manifests itself in the classroom, that manifests itself for work-based learning experiences for the kids, that then allow the kids or incentivize the kids to stay in a community, especially those ones that want to be teachers. We have great teachers colleges all around Michigan I'm a grad of some of them. I'm coming back because I did do the urban teacher certification program at Eastern Michigan University. I perked up because you caught me. I was actually putting in my application to have my certification transferred. But I think, to your point, it's a yeoman's effort. The village has to rebuild itself, and the village has to wrap itself around the school district.
All right, fantastic, Terrance. Thank you so much. I want to come back to Tiffany Tilley. This question is for you. Since we're talking about teachers, we do understand that there's a teacher shortage, not just in the state of Michigan, but everywhere. There's a teacher shortage. No matter if you're in Texas, Tennessee, or the state of Florida, there's a teacher shortage. So my question is, do you think alternative teacher certification licenses is a good way to address the teacher shortage crisis in Michigan, especially in urban areas of the state? We know that recently, DPSCD, Detroit Public School Community District, is starting to roll out their own alternative teacher certification requirements to try to attract more teachers into the classroom. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, there's definitely a national teacher shortage. When I first got elected to the state board, I was elected by my peers to be the NASB representative, which means I was your national rep. And I got a chance to visit other states. And there's definitely a national teacher shortage. And we've been hit hard here in Michigan for years with it. When you hear about long-term subs in the classrooms, it's because we don't have enough certified teachers to fill these positions. And I do think that more alternative teacher certification programs are drastically needed. MDE is currently working on opportunities to expand the programs with programs like Grow Your Own, which some districts, including, like you mentioned, DPSCD, will be a part of. So for example, they'll have the opportunity to train and support staff, support staff. So your parapros, your substitute teachers that are in the building, people that are already familiar with the school district, working in the building, working with the students. When we're, out of pandemic, they're working full time with the students, but they'll be able to train them and certify them to become teachers. This is so important. And it's especially important in communities of color, so we can, grow more of our own. We have a shortage of African American teachers here in Michigan. So we need more representation in the classrooms when it comes to African Americans and other minorities. I think also we need to increase teacher salaries so that we can attract more talent. It is one of the most important jobs. A teacher shapes thoughts, creates leaders. When I was growing up in parochial school, it also, we also learn morality. But a teacher has the biggest influence on the outcome of the types of human beings we produce outside of parents. And of course, we know it starts at home, but we also know that during the school year, a child, outside of the pandemic, a child spends half of their waking hours in school. So we cannot deny its importance on shaping the lives of a child so they can grow into vital members of society. We need to pay teachers their worth, restore respectability to the field, and then we will be able to attract more teachers and more talent.
Fantastic.
Mr. President, I would just have a follow-up question with that, Ms. Tilley, and I think that's so important that you say the last piece in terms of for their pay. So what's the national conversation having with respect to the pay for STEM professionals in general, specifically cybersecurity? Because some of the certifications that I have starting at $150, and that's with very little experience. That's not with somebody like myself with 35 years experience, the certifications, graduate degrees, and about to do an EDD, and I'm published. I'm only teaching because of what you said. I have to go back. It's my responsibility. Somebody did it for me. So let me go into these schools and show these young men what, first of all, a man looks like. Okay. with everything that I'm coming with in terms of just my person, you know, wearing a tie. I wore a shirt and tie every day before the pandemic. And then what an IT professional looks like, because they're not seeing IT professionals in their household most of the time, let alone on the streets.
Yeah,
All right.
I think that, you know, to your point, the more educated, you know, the more training you have as a teacher, the more degrees you have, the more pay you should have. But just even starting out, you know, I think the average is somewhere in the 35,000 or something like that. And like any other field, when you get your master's degree, when you get all of these certifications behind your name to make you more marketable, of course, you should be able to, your salary should increase. But even just starting out, there's no way we should start teachers out in poverty. There are teachers that are working 2 jobs to maintain, you know, to maintain their household. And we want them to come and give our children the best, but we need to pay them what they're worth so that they can come and give our children their best. So,
And we need to figure it out, because we need to incent STEM professionals, period, to come into the classroom. I mean, even some folks, even some of them in their retirement are getting paid more than teachers 10, 15 years, you know, in the game type deal, what the kids, as the kids would say.
and then too, there's an issue in Michigan with retired teachers, because we should be able to ask retired teachers to come back, but then that affects, they can't, you know, that affects their pay, so they can't necessarily come back and work full time.
Wow.
Right. So that's another issue we have.
Wow. See, I think the public needs to know that, because I don't think a lot of people know that piece that you just said, in that it's a double-edged sword, if you will,
It
for the
is.
retired teachers, that, okay, I retire, but shoot, folks need us. And so I'm gonna go back in the classroom, or if nothing more, for these alternative certification programs, especially for those teachers that retired as master teachers. How do we recoup that brain drain, you know, that we've lost? How can we incorporate them into the process? Because they've got pearls of wisdom with respect to just how to just deal with kids in general, the classroom behavioral kinds of things that you got to get past before you can teach the students. And they got tips and tricks just ready to roll out. Wow.
Yep.
All right, so I gotta go. This is great dialogue. This is what I'm talking about. But I got Winnie Nwankwo here. She has joined us, and I've allowed you two to talk while I got her ready. So the question is coming directly to her. My question to Winnie is, how do we prepare students for a post-COVID-19 school environment from your perspective, right at the K-12, the middle school level where you're working at as a principal every day?
Hi, first of all, I want to apologize for being late. I had an event at school today honoring our mothers. You know, mothers are really important, and we had to honor them today. We had, you know, really nice stuff going on for them. So that's the reason, one of the reasons I'm late. But anyway, yeah, because first of all, we know that prior to COVID, our students were not ready. Our students were not getting the education that they need, quality education. By that, I mean, and I'm referring to like the kids that we're dealing with, the Black community, they were not getting the education they need. And now post-COVID, during COVID, we lost most of them. We did. They learned nothing. Because they had so much going on. They were not used to online learning, and they had to deal with death and other issues in the family. They had parents working and all of that. So right now, I mean, I had a student who committed suicide. I had a few students who kept on, you know, sending messages to their teachers saying that they wanted to commit suicide. They were hearing voices and what they were dealing with. You know, some of them couldn't talk to their parents. So right now, the most important thing is to build strong relationship with these students. We need to be mindful of what, you know, they have dealt and are still dealing with. And so we need to have counselors ready, social workers. We need to have those in the schools because, listen, teachers are everything. They're not just teaching, they're not just educating. They are counselors, they are mothers, fathers, they are mentors, they are everything to these children. A lot of our students speak to the teachers the way they wouldn't, what they wouldn't share with their parents, but they're comfortable sharing with teachers. So first of all, we just need to have counselors and social workers ready. We need to create a welcoming environment for our children. When they come in, let them know how much we miss them, but we need to, let me go back to what was said earlier. We need to pay the teachers. Teachers want to do these things. They don't mind doing it, but at the same time, the salaries that they receive, are not enough to cover whatever expenses they have. So now by them having other jobs, they're not able to put in 100% the time they want to put in, to help our children. And we know that they need help. So one of the things that really need to be done is to pay our teachers more and also realize that they had to deal with a lot too during COVID. So we pay them more, we create a welcoming environment, we have counselors and social workers ready, and just start building relationship with these kids. Start off the school year by talking to them and just know where they're coming from or what they're dealing with right now. That way we can better prepare to teach them. You cannot teach a kid who is traumatized. You cannot teach a kid who is going through a lot of things at home and then they come to school to learn. I don't want to learn. I want to deal with my issues. If that's dealt with, then I need to learn. So we really need to put our teachers, pay them. They're highly underpaid. Let's start with that. Pay them and they'll be ready to do whatever they need to do for our children.
All right, Winnie. And I'm going to come to Melody right now with this question. With so many external factors impacting K-12 school districts like yours, do you feel that we should continue a hybrid model of education? There's a lot of chatter about virtual education. Some people say yes, others say no. What from a board member perspective, what is your point of view on that?
She talked to my superintendent, Dr. Dignan, and why don't we just do real time, just like we have virtual church where you can be able to have kids in the classroom, and then the ones that prefer to do online, they can be at home at the same time. So that way there is no lapse in learning. We were talking about having like international students join our school district, which I'm very excited about. I'm so glad that you have connected me with Mr. Campbell and trying to forget Miss Lady with the
Dr. Watkins.
Dr. Watkins.
Yes, ma'am, Dr. Watkins. So that way, I want to get you guys to come work with us because, like I said, we're going to do a virtual academy. The problem was when we did COVID, we weren't prepared. We had lost a superintendent. We had like several interims in the middle. So when COVID hit, they were unprepared. The children lost. They had this program called Ingenuity. It wasn't brought out well. They didn't explain like which ones were the teachers from the school district and which one was the private company. The curriculum didn't match. It was a nightmare. So we just are about to dismantle that, move forward, do a virtual academy. And then, like I said, we're gonna reach out to international students to have them come. That's why I'm really excited about being with Akindele. I definitely would love your help with the cybersecurity. We're doing career ready, life ready, college ready. So we were talking about working with organizations to help the kids do like cybersecurity, making over 150,000 coming out. We're working with the labor unions, getting these kids jobs with the pipe fitters, making a lot of money. We do have dual enrollment programs. We have a relationship with the Wayne County Community College, Schoolcraft College. So I want to really enhance these organizations. And I would like to get with everybody on this panel to really work them out. I love Ms. Winnie with your perspective on the education, because we do need that. Kids in trauma cannot learn. And my friend, Honorable Tiffany Tilley, she can help us on the state side. I actually was speaking with our state representative yesterday because the nice thing with our superintendent, he brings in different resources. My thing is we need to have after school programs and have kids transported back and forth, because we don't have that out here in Westland. Detroit usually has programs, but we don't have those. So if somehow we can get some type of House bill written up, And I talked to my state representative yesterday, like we need to have some money funneled out so these kids can go back and forth, because the problem is, like I'm a full-time mom, I'm a single parent. I work 2 or 3 jobs. Even though I'm on the school board, I can't get my son back and forth to different events. So that can cause harm, you know, to my child, because I have to work to make money, but then he's missing out because he can't get back and forth to after school programs. So that's something that's very important. But like I said, there's ways you can do them both ways where it can be like real time, because we have a lot of kids, you know, that are sickly, so that way they're not missing out. So, and some kids just prefer to do online learning and they are doing better at it. So that way, if you have it going on at the same time, where the kids that need to be in the classroom are in the classroom, and the ones that want to be virtual at the same time streaming, that way you can take care of both needs, and we can get additional students from outside of the district who can't technically get to our district due to the busing, because, you know, with the school of choice, they have to find their own way to get to the school. So we're doing a marketing plan for 2021 to go 10 miles out, because we've been having different school districts hijacking their kids. They're like sending buses, like River Rouge is sending buses to Wayne Westland to take our kids, especially our minority kids. So we definitely want to keep them in place. But I think if we do the hybrid that they're doing right now is not really working, because my son only goes to school 2 days a week, and 3 days a week, they're not doing anything. So that's just not good. So, but if we can combine them together, you know, like real time, I think that'd be the best solution.
Fantastic. Actually, I want to ask that same question to Winnie, because Winnie is at the middle school level. With so many external factors impacting K-12 school districts, even charter schools where you work at, do you feel that we should continue a hybrid model of education? I know you tackled that head on. We talked about it offline, some of the challenges about that, but what's your thoughts on that?
Honestly, it has not favored the group of kids that we service. You know, maybe for students in the suburbs, you know, they I mean, we know they're ready. Some of them are, but not our children. They're not ready, because with everything they're dealing with at home, they were not even focused. We lost most of our students. Okay, I'll just tell you right now, I have 121 8th graders. I only have 17 of them who actually did some work and earned their grades to move on to the 9th grade.
Wow.
The rest of them we couldn't reach. We lost so many of them. So many of them could not even come to school. They were not logging on. They were not. Parents, when you call the parents, what they would say, oh, well, she was logged in when I left the house for work this morning. But as soon as the parents leave, they log off. And then they go do whatever. Now, they're good at getting on social media to do anything, but not learning. So our children are not prepared for it. They are not. So I don't think that we are ready. I don't think that it's going to be favorable to them. We'll keep losing them because already they are behind, you know, and so they have just fallen further behind. And I'm not talking about a year or two. They have fallen further behind. So what kind of students are we raising if we continue with this kind of education? So I think we should go back. And I do know that times are changing. I do know that the world as a whole is changing. But what I'm saying is right now, our students are not ready for hybrid education. Now, maybe we have one or two, like a mom shared with me today. She said to me, because before we went 100% virtual, her daughter was coming in face-to-face. She told me that the daughter was more focused virtually than when she came in the building. That's what she told me. So I had the success stories, but it's like 2% success story. So most of them did not. So what I want to say is if we have students who we think are ready, and that might be a handful, then we might offer that option to them. But generally, on the most part, I don't think that we should continue with that kind of education because it's not favorable to our students for the demographics that we're serving. It's not favorable to them.
Got it.
We need to do some things and put some things in place to get them ready.
Okay.
So in that, the question I have for that too, to that piece is Miss Tilley, what is the national discourse or even in the state to pushing CTE down to like the 6th grade? because for many kids, by the time they get to the 9th grade in the guise of readiness, they haven't even taken one certification exam. They have not even prepared themselves for the Microsoft Office suite, which is our fault. But to Winnie's point, that the readiness, they come into the 9th grade, they should be ready. They should know what they want to go into. So now they're trying to find themselves the 9th grade, which then means they don't really get into it to the 10th grade. And so in some program schools where it's 2-year program, they done lost half of that time already. Especially when we look at minority groups. And when I'm saying minority groups, I'm not just saying of color. I'm saying those groups in general in the country, which does include folks from other countries that are here in very small populations.
The focus here in Michigan, the conversations that we've been having has not necessarily been to expand it to middle school or to 6th grade, but to expand it on the high school level, period. That is something that's definitely needed, whether it's in a district like DPSED. I know they do have some schools, but expanding the programming there, or whether it's an ISD in different counties, we need to expand CTE opportunities so that when students even graduate, they can graduate with a certificate or an associate's degree. Right. I think that's something that's very important for progress for our students.
I want to slide in real fast because we're starting to descend on time. We're trying to wrap up by 8 o'clock. I want to get to the chat room. Again, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. I want to read this one from Dr. Elizabeth. What is your view on tuition-free boarding schools as a school format here in the state of Michigan? And I'm going to propose that question to both Tiffany and Melody, because you both sit on these boards, educational boards. I'll start with Tiffany first.
I'm sorry, which one is it?
Let me repeat the question. I'll repeat the question. That's cool. What is your view on tuition-free boarding schools as a school format in Michigan, here in the state of Michigan?
That's not something I'm well versed on.
Okay.
Just personally, I'm not opposed to it, but it's not something I'm well versed on.
Okay. Melody, any thoughts?
And same as Tiffany, like I said, I don't really know a whole lot about it, but in a way, it could be like, it could be a good thing where you can have like, Miss Winnie was talking about the trauma in the school. So maybe if you had something that was, tuition free, great educators, room and board, it's almost like getting them like a preparatory to college. So maybe, depending on the age level, maybe like a high school type preparatory boarding school, just depends with no fees. And that way the kids can get like the best education. It depends on how you set it up and the structure. So it could be an option. Like I said, I don't know a whole lot about it, but it could be a possibility. I'm trying to work with different sororities and fraternities to bring them back to our school district. When I was in high school, I was a Sorrel, a little sister, AKA, and that helped teach me like get me ready for college, scholarships, being a lady. So those programs are good in helping, especially young African-Americans who don't really have or even students that don't have mothers in the home, fathers in the home. So, that could be something to look into, do a little bit more research,
and they're successful on the private end, like your Cranbrook has boarding. I think it could work well. I haven't really heard it talked about as far as in public education.
Okay. And Charles Passari, he made a statement. He says, hybrid is not only challenging for teachers, but challenging for parents who cannot supervise their children at home. And I've heard that many times as well. He also mentioned, not to mention children suffering from learning disabilities, but Charles also asked a question to everyone. What are your thoughts on the effects of online distractions on children as well? I'm gonna swing that to Dr. Watkins.
Yes, and I thank you for that opportunity, Mr. Akindele. And I wanted to circle back to some things that Ms. Hines was saying, as well as Ms. Winnie, in terms of, trauma. because, you know, we have to really look at what's called ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences. And when we look at those experiences, one of the things we do not, when we're doing standardized testing, and oftentimes even with formative or summative assessment, those issues, those ACEs are not taken into consideration. Similarly, when there is online or hybrid learning, ACEs are trauma, those experiences are not taken into consideration. And I am a strong proponent that we must take those matters into consideration, even in a virtual or hybrid online experience. And that includes learning disabilities as well. One of the things that we're rolling out with our students is 3D printing and imaging, where they can actually attain certification in that area. And some of the research has found that it works very well with autistic students. So we have to look for those opportunities where we can marry some of the technology with the learning experience. And I'm a strong proponent that when we look at that, that's where I go back to that human interaction must be there.
Okay. All right. So, you know, we have about 9 minutes left before we wrap up. And so we're going to kind of go around the room a little bit and give final thoughts about where do we go? This is my question. Where do we go in 2021? We're in June. We're getting ready to hit June. School. We are anticipating face-to-face in the fall. What are we going to expect with students, parents, and the community at large in the fall when it comes to children and education? I'm gonna start with Melandie Hines.
Thank you. As I said before, I'm really big on developing relationships. So I definitely would like to keep a really great working relationship. And maybe we can all do a powwow with my superintendent, because I love your ideas coming from every aspect. I mean, you guys have a lot to offer, and this is new. We're embarking on new areas of learning. And before I am, like I said, concerned about the lack or the loss of knowledge that our children have already lost, you know, due to the pandemic, and the issues with the digital divide, you know, a lot of the children not being able to have the computers. We were able to, we passed the bond, so we had a lot of money with technology to make sure that every student in the district was to receive a Chromebook, and we had insurance on it. And we were even able to work out with our library to make sure that our kids were able to rent out hotspots. So that was kind of helping a lot, especially with a lot of lower income children. We have like the third highest homeless rate in the county, even though people think Wayne West and the suburbs, we comprise of 6 cities: Wayne, Westland, Inkster, Dearborn Heights, Canton, and Romulus. So, and we do have, you know, a lot of high poverty here, but definitely we have to be innovative. I know one thing with our new superintendent, Mr. Dignan, he came from Ypsilanti Public Schools, and he was able to work in Southfield Public Schools. So one thing I like about him being in the area that I'm in Westland, he's able to connect with our minority population. And usually we've always had an issue with that in Wayne Westland. So I'm really excited about having him meet other organizations, especially like yours here. Very excited about that. I'm excited about bringing international students. That's something I've always wanted to do. I would love to hire international teachers. You know, I would like to have a diverse, to represent like each of our children in our districts. So that's very important. And I definitely, like I said, would like to move forward with you all in some type of collaboration. I love the cybersecurity. I love everything. I love what Ms. Winnie was saying, like from a different perspective on the trauma, because it is an issue. Like, you know, my son had a 504 plan. The teachers didn't care nothing about that during this pandemic. So it was pretty rough. And like you said, as a working parent, what do I know if my kid is gone? You know, you don't know what the kids are doing when you're not home to supervise them. So that's an issue. So again, I am Akindele has my information. I would love to reach out with you. Maybe, like I say, have a big powwow, sit down, let's collaborate, figure out some thoughts to help our children. And this is a very wonderful organization. So thank you so much for allowing me to be on your panel.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm going to swing that same question to Winnie. You have the floor. How do we move forward in the fall, face to face?
So everybody really, most people are looking forward to it. Teachers are looking forward to it. And The students not so much, but the parents are. Because even now, the parents are like, oh, can my kid come to summer school? They're signing their kids up for summer school. We have summer school and we have a whole bunch of enrichment programs, not necessarily the subject area, but enrichment as well, because they haven't been outside lately. They've just been indoors. So we have to prepare, you know, have all of those things in place, like enrichment programs, after school programs that target those areas that we want them to build on. And of course, additional tutoring programs, because right now they're coming in with not enough foundation that they need to go to the next grade level. But at the same time, we don't want to hold them back, because we have this issue about self-esteem when we hold them back in the same grade level. So we have to work extra hard to do everything and make everything come together. But again, I'll say, pay our teachers. They need, pay them, because they have their job cut out for them right now. So, and then the teachers need to be, go through some professional development, because they have a lot to learn themselves in order to be ready for the students to come back. So we hit the ground running.
All right. The Honorable Tiffany Tilley, how do we move forward from your perspective?
First, let me say thank you so much, Akindele, for having me on this platform. I appreciate the work that you do, that you've been doing for years out here, and that you do through GABA. The organization itself has grown tremendously, and you are infamous for bringing good people together. So thank you for having me on this platform.
The honor is all mine.
So, you know, there has been a lot of federal funding that has been passed to go to our schools. Unfortunately, the legislators have been trying to play games with the money, but there's been 3 rounds of federal funding, and this last round, it was $1.9 million, $1.9 trillion. It was passed to go to the schools. So the schools are going to get infused with some much needed funding, and then they have certain areas that they can use it in. So I'm hoping to see that we're making progress in the schools, because of course the schools have been underfunded for a very long time. This is going to help fill in some of the gaps. This is one-time funding. So I want people to understand that we still need to fight for equitable funding going forward. But I'm hoping to see that some of the social and emotional needs that our children have are going to be met with some of this funding. You know, PTSD, anxiety, depression, suicide has all gone up with our students. And so we, because of this pandemic, so we really need to focus on addressing those needs, as well as the multitude of needs that they're going to have. And I'm hoping that by the time school starts back, some of the infrastructure needs can have been met with some of these dollars as well. And that's going to be very important, especially with the pandemic and the coronavirus. We want to make sure that students have all of the proper, even the HVAC systems. You know, we want to make sure that everything is properly in place for our students. Technology, as Board Member Hines mentioned, that's so important. We have students in rural areas that don't even have internet, that don't have Wi-Fi. We have superintendents in rural areas that don't have Wi-Fi. So this has been something that has been a very hard and rough transition in the urban areas and rural areas throughout Michigan. So I hope that we'll have enough time now to get adjusted to this situation and use these dollars to move forward in a way that's most productive for our students.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Dr. Watkins, the way forward.
The way forward, you know, I will still stress human interaction, of course, teachers. And when I say teachers, I just cannot leave out the remainder, staff, the full team in a school, because sometimes that food service worker, that janitor is important in hearing and watching a student come into the building or interacting with a student. I come from a place where we didn't even have but one private school where I grew up. And all of us went to school together. And so it made me know that people really have to care about people and be that village, even in the school. So human interaction is essential. I agree with Ms. Winnie and Ms. Hines, Board Member Hines and Tilley, that pay for teachers, that's what Terrance was talking about, that is essential. I also believe that we need to look at HBCUs. I'm a strong proponent of that, where we can also bring some of those teachers into our school districts to work with our young people, with our parents. I'm a strong proponent that we have to help parents understand what every child needs to know to succeed. And, there's some key resources on that. In particular, there's one guide and one resource that I love to use with parents and training them, but it helps teachers too to understand it, is Extraordinary Parent. And that helps it look, it's a very good guidebook, color-coded guidebook to say, what does my child need to know? And how can I help that child succeed? So when we look at that hybrid learning environment, we still must look at human interaction in this digital age.
Fantastic. Terrance Campbell, you have the last word. Keep it short, keep it sweet, but keep it impactful. You have the last word, brother.
So this is what I'm gonna say though too. I love everything that we've said, but we also have to be the change that we wish to see. If we're talking about preparing our kids to be college and career ready, I gotta stress that multifaceted thing. Businesses and post-secondary educational institutions have invested lots of money in digital infrastructure. My employer, Terminex, we not going back to physical nothing. We got C-class folks working from home, making $500,000. That was unheard of. So yes, I agree with everything that has been said, and especially the human touch. But if we are preparing the kids to be successful and truly now the Jetson age, then we have to figure out what is that middle ground look like. I like what I heard Winnie saying, we've got a new program at Terminex where we actually have a summer high school intern IT internship. It's virtual. Okay, we're teaching them what it means to use social mediums in a professional context. What it means to have a professional email. What is LinkedIn versus Facebook? How do you use animation and gaming skills? Because those are skills, they learning very cool stuff to be a better professional, to step into your greatness. We've got cybersecurity games that we use, but then also preparing them for certifications. I always hear that kids, they don't want to read, but if I throw a Game Informer magazine in front of them kids, who are you? You ain't that kid that was in this other classroom, or that janitor say is acting out all the time. We've got to get out of our way, okay? Move out of our comfort zone at the end of the day and come up with educational models that truly do prepare the kids for the 24th century. Forget the 21st century.
Right. Yes.
The fourth digital revolution, as Mr. President would say, and I will pass it off to him.
And I thank everyone for being on this very important town hall tonight, Terrance. And it is very true. As the president and CEO of the Global African Business Association, and as the national political director of the Nigerian American Public Affairs Committee at the national level, I do talk a lot about the fourth industrial revolution as it pertains to education. And the reason I do that is because other countries have moved on in terms of educational and achievement and educational attainment. You look at countries like Finland, Germany, France, Norway, Sweden, Singapore, and I've studied all their systems we have a long way to go, but guess what? We will get there with these type of minds that are on this town hall this evening. This concludes our town hall. I'd like to thank everyone, thank the panel for coming out. Thank you for participating. And I also would like to thank our audience for coming out and participating as well. Just stay tuned for more NAPAC Michigan events, as well as the GABA events that are forthcoming. Thank you so much for being on this town hall. God bless you. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone,
Thank you.
good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.